when we think about artificial intelligence in the conservative movement, the question is, what is the conservative position on AI? Right? I mean, when we talk about pro-life, we talk about gun control, we talk about national security, things of that sort, taxes, we sort of know where people are on a 90-10 scale in the conservative movement. But it's less so, I think, right now. Some people think that's because we're at a nascent state in AI. We're really not, obviously. Since 1956, we've had this term, and there's been an enormous trajectory more recently. But I think that the most important thing that I'd like to focus on is the narrative war over artificial intelligence, because whoever controls the policy and controls the culture and ultimately the people. I do work at Breitbart. I wear many other hats, but Andrew obviously famously said politics is downstream from culture. I think that tech elites believe that code is upstream from culture and therefore can control and affect the citizenry in a very direct and powerful way. AI is the most, I think, powerful political weapon. I don't think it is a tool. I think it is an information system that will touch virtually every policy dimension that all of the people in here and in this conference and beyond work on, whether you're talking about education, whether you're talking about national security, certainly in economics and jobs, which is going to be the focal point of some remarks that I would like to make. I really want to do three things today because we certainly want to hear from everybody and have a conversation with you. The first is I want to tell you a story that I think frames the stakes of the narrative war. The second is to talk about agentic AI, and then thirdly, to talk about what I call fractal truths, things that will scale macro and micro to help us to navigate through what is coming and what is already here. The story actually starts well before ChatGPT's public-facing arrival. It starts 6 years before that, in 2016. And there was a young man, and he had an audacious idea. And his audacious idea was he wanted to do a $60 million social experiment. And he wanted to give $1,000 to low-income people with no strings attached. And he was going to do this in pilot programs. He was going to do it for several years. He meant what he said. He put in $14 million of the $60 million of his own money. And the reason he said he wanted to do this, he put up on a blog post, and I'm reading directly from his blog. As technology eliminates jobs and massive new wealth gets created, we're going to see some version of this at a national scale. Now, all of us in here recognize this to be universal basic income, or UBI. But then he dropped the mask a little more and let the mask slip even beyond that. In his blog comments, he wrote, "I think one day it will seem ridiculous," this is a direct quote, "that fear of not eating was how we motivated people economically." Now, for free market people and people that believe in sort of the Judeo-Christian work ethic and the rest of it, that's a pretty strident statement, right? You're really snapping the hinge of the human motivation for economic flourishing, not just in terms of your own personal identity, your own ability to feed yourself and your family, but also to build wealth and security for your progeny. That man's name was Sam Altman. And of course, today he runs OpenAI. He has been a very strong donor for democratic causes up until the recent new administration had given exclusively to Democrats. For centuries, America's soul thrived on free markets, powered by this notion of striving. And this question is now, is the mode of AI going to mean that work is outdated, dependency is progress, and leisure is the future? That really is the narrative war, and that's what I would like to talk about. Whether or not that comes to pass, that's why we have these conversations, and I think we need to be having these conversations. I personally am very concerned that at the grassroots level, we're really not fully as coached up on these topics and really thinking through the five-dimensional chess that we're going to be confronting. Our usual place is a default position of conservatives defaulting to answering automation with the same refrain, right? Oh, I've heard this before. The robots are coming. It never happens. Jobs get created. Jobs get destroyed. The free market will work it out. But of course, this time the AI titans claim this will be different. And we're talking about Mustafa Demirtas, Dario Amodei, obviously Sam Altman, Mustafa Suleyman at Microsoft AI. Some conservatives kick back and say, well, look, LLMs are just stochastic parrots. It's nothing but a fancy autocomplete, nothing to see here. Even Jan LeCun claims that an LLM is no smarter than your average house cat. This isn't going to be an economic threat the way that it's been postured. But of course, those who study AI and are certainly building it have quite a rejoinder to make. And that is the crux of the point, which is going to be agentic AI. And whether or not the promises we're hearing from, just recently, 2 months ago, Anthropic's Dario Amodei, saying that you're going to see the vaporization of 50% of white-collar entry-level positions. Many of the young people in this room, many of us have children or are having families, and that is a big concern there. If you've played with agentic AI, you might, again, feel like, well, it's very nascent. We've still got all these problems with hallucinations. You're going to have all sorts of issues with permissions. And the rest of it, whether you're talking about Perplexity's Comet or OpenAI's Operator. But here's the narrative plot twist for us, I think, politically. It almost doesn't matter that reality in the short term. The narrative war is, can you convince people that job displacements at scale are imminent and inevitable? And you know that this is the move the left has made because they're not hiding it. They're literally saying, as Ilhan Omar said, COVID was just a dry run for UBI. Right? We got people used to mailbox money, and now that we've seeded that terrain, it's time for the three-day work week, 4-day work week. We're seeing Bill Gates seed that narrative as well. Obviously, Bernie Sanders, AOC, and others are doing a lot of what we've seen European counterparts move toward work replacement through automated agentic AI. And so we're going to have to see if that really comes to pass, right? I tend to believe that agentic AI is not just marketing hype. Again, just to be clear, I'm not talking about workflow chaining with Zapier and N8N and Make and things like that. I'm talking about actual autonomous end-to-end work replacement. So what do we need to be doing as conservatives in this narrative war? What do we need to be thinking about? I just want to leave you with 5 things and then listen to some very bright people. The first is, I think that in this era, we are entering a code red era for conservatives. Code red as an alert flare, but also code red, we need a code. We need to have a unified position. We just heard about the importance of having that central North Star vision. I think in politics, if you believe that AI is like fire and that it can burn down a civilization or warm a person a meal, particularly narrow AI, which all of you use, 99% of people use AI, whether they know they do or not, your weather app, your Netflix algorithm. We're not really talking about narrow AI. A lot of people are sort of fine with that. We're talking about the big stuff. But if you believe that it is like fire, then the torchbearers are going to matter. And so we should understand that we will have wide pendulum swings based upon political shifts. I think the second thing is in education. And I'm looking forward to hearing my colleagues' thoughts on this, because I think that kids are not going to just be able to be taught to find jobs. They're going to have to be taught to create them. My personal view, and shout out to the classicist over here, Spencer, is that the trivium is still the basis, but I think we could have 2 silos on top of that, an entrepreneurial layer as well as an AI layer. I think white-collar jobs are really at risk long-term, and by that I mean 5 to 10 years, probably less. The Moravec's paradox, this idea that things that we find hard are easy for machines and vice versa, is true. And so white-collar jobs tend to be more at risk than the blue collar. The biggest threat, I think, for the people in the smart brains in this room that we will want to be tracking over the next several years with a AI trajectory is the bureaucracy. I think the danger is invisible algorithms, AI-powered social credit, digital debanking, cancel culture, scan and ban technology like Mike Benz fights against, people that are very smart doing that work in the censorship space. And then I think the final thing is on a personal level. If you're not at the end of your career and you have great aspirations and fire in the belly, you're going to have a brutal speed efficiency to catch up because of the speed with which the ground is shifting. I think conservatives can win that narrative battle, but we've got a lot of work to do. Because if the left wins, AI becomes dependence, surveillance, and indoctrination, and America drained of its soul. I think that we, on the other hand, can fight against those pixelated prisons and keep the ideas flowing freely. The way I'd end is this. People often say, if you had to put it in a word picture, sort of where are we right now? We saw the Trump AI action policy, very pro-innovation, very strong. This very first word on the actual past the introduction is acceleration. So I think we clearly have a guidelight there of where policy will be shifting. But I would say that right now, the everyday person sort of sees the right foot of America in the roses, the potential, if you will, metaphorically, and then the left foot hovering over that potential landmine, existential or political. I think together, hopefully, with the bright minds here and in this movement, we can plant both of America's feet on virtuous soil and preserve freedom and protect our soul.